Hey guys, I hope you're having a good week. It's Wednesday, and so it's time for a snap video. I'm Mandy Friedman, licensed professional clinical counselor, and I'm a certified domestic violence counselor as well, and the creator of the SNAP program, which is a recovery program for survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. Today, I have a list of questions that were sent to me, and so I'm just going to go through them one by one. This might take a little while. This could be a 20-minute video, maybe a 25-minute video. We'll see how it goes. So let's get started. I have this person's permission to read their questions. I'm going to change a little bit of the information to protect their anonymity. Hey Mandy, got a suggestion for a topic to cover, but then there's 5 topics and they're all really good ones. Number 1. Why is doubt and rumination part of an after effect of narcissistic abuse? This is one of the biggest topics, the most common topics that we cover and address in recovery from narcissistic abuse, which is this, continual self-doubt, questioning your reality, wondering if you were the problem, did you see things clearly? But it's definitely something that we've all done, for sure. So let's see. One thing that happens with survivors of narcissistic abuse is a lot of us have complex PTSD, or PTSD. And if that's the case, then it makes sense that you would be struggling with some self-doubt and rumination, because that's one of the things that happens when you have trauma that you're working on, overcoming or understanding. And don't forget that trauma doesn't have to come as the result of a physical form of violence or a death or something of that nature. Trauma can just be learning that your spouse wasn't who you thought they were. Trauma can be hearing your spouse or your partner scream at your child and say mean things to your child. So just keep in mind that trauma is completely subjective in terms of what impacts each individual in a traumatic way. Some people can be super traumatized by one thing, and then someone else is not traumatized by that at all. So don't judge yourself for having PTSD or complex PTSD. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that your brain was affected by the things that you have experienced and endured. So if you have complex PTSD or PTSD as a result of a relationship that's abusive, that's one factor that would contribute to the self-doubt and the rumination. Another thing would be cognitive dissonance, right? So you simultaneously are relieved that this person is gone, but you also still love them and you miss them and grieve them. That's going to cause some cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance makes us disoriented in our thought life. It makes us question our reality, and it can make us anxious, depressed, or confused. So remember that there's going to be a degree of cognitive dissonance happening while you're in these relationships, and then also while you're recovering and rebuilding afterwards, because the person that you're getting away from, the person that has been harming you, using you, exploiting you, objectifying you, that person is somebody who is supposed to nurture and protect you and support you and be on your team. And so when we're experiencing that, I love this person, I still grieve them, I miss them actually, but also thank God I'm no longer in that relationship. That causes cognitive dissonance. And then there we are with the ruminating and the self-blame. And then the other thing is that their voice is still in your head. That's how abuse works. And long after that person's no longer around, you're saying to yourself the things that they used to say to you. So just be aware of what those voices are saying. What is that thought pattern specifically? And who was the first person in your life to ever say that to you? Who was the first person that said that you were out of your mind, or that you were selfish, or that you were difficult, Who said those things to you? Was it a parent? Was it a spouse? Was it both? And just be aware of the nasty things that you say to yourself and the way that you judge and criticize yourself. That's not actually your voice. That's someone else's voice that's still lingering around up there. So we want to try to not give that a lot of power or assign a whole lot of meaning to it. It's just, oh, there's that thought or there's that voice again, and then try to redirect if you can. And then also, that's what they want. Okay, so if you're having self-doubt and you're ruminating and wondering if maybe you were the problem, or is there anything you could have done better, or all the things that we're questioning, that's what they want. So that's what psychological abuse does, is it breaks down your thought life in a way that they're in control of your mind. And if you think about it, when we're sitting and we're doing that hamster on a wheel thing, just going through those thoughts again and again and again, we're very distracted, we're very consumed by, and we're allowing that person to affect us in a way that they don't have really that privilege anymore of having access to you in that way. And yet we're still allowing them to have access in that way. Sometimes it's because we don't realize that's what's happening. Sometimes we're not sure what to do about it. But just be aware of it, I would say, more than anything, is just that those nasty things you say to yourself, is that you saying that? And then, in a lot of ways we're alone in these experiences. We're finding each other online. We're not even finding each other face to face. I face to face. Well, nobody's seeing each other face to face right now, but before any of this pandemic quarantine stuff started to happen, most of us were finding each other online in terms of survivors of narcissistic abuse. It's a lonely place, and most people don't understand it unless they've experienced it. So, not only are you ruminating because of all these other reasons that I just listed, but also because you're not surrounded by people that understand, nor do they want to. If anything, you're mostly surrounded by people who are like, that's not a thing, and talk you out of your reality sometimes. So the fact that a lot of us are alone in these experiences, in our immediate lives, in our non-cyber lives, some of us don't have anyone to talk to about this. And so that can make you have a lot of self-doubt too. Okay, that was question 1. Let's roll on to question 2. Why don't most people see this major personality deficit before it's too late? Is it due to heavy manipulation and gaslighting? Well, number 1 is we don't want to see it. In the beginning, we did see it, but we talked ourselves out of it. We had instincts and we were like, nah, right? We don't want to see it. We don't want to think these things about our partner or our intimate partner. We don't want to have to scrutinize over these types of things. We want to believe the best things about them. And I would urge you also to take our SNAP Class 2, which talks about survivors and targets, and what are our features and commonalities, what are our traits, what are our patterns. And I think that, one of our patterns is that we see the best in other people, especially people that we really love. So I would keep that in mind, that, it's gaslighting and manipulation for sure, but also we have a way that we view other people interpersonally, and we believe there's good in everyone. So we will overlook those red flags over and over and over and over again and give the person the benefit of the doubt. We will do that. So another reason why, they choose empathic people, and that's why they choose empathic people, is because they know that we are going to see the good in them. We're going to overlook some things that other people may not overlook. We have that tendency to accept the unacceptable with hope that the person is going to, figure it out, and that if we just love them enough, we help them enough and support them enough and care for them enough, that they'll, do what they do in romantic comedies and snap out of it. remember that this isn't something that somebody snaps out of. And if it appears that they are snapping out of it, then that means that they're faking it. So, let's see. And, in this question is, why didn't we see it before it was too late? Well, I would suggest that it's never too late. That whenever it is that you discover this and do something about it, that's when you were supposed to. We all have our paths, and we arrive at things at different times. And some of us, we weren't ready to accept this. We weren't ready to examine it. We certainly weren't ready to say anything out loud or tell anyone, and we weren't going to do anything about it for a long time, right? A long time. So it's never too late. I have clients ranging from 20 years old to 75 years old that are survivors of narcissistic abuse. I've got, people in their 50s, 60s, 40s that are starting over in life, after being married for 20 years, decades to someone, and they're starting over. Now the children are grown up and have their own kids, and so, somebody reads an article one day and things start to make sense. Next thing you know, they're like, oh my God, this is what's been the problem. There's narcissistic abuse happening. No wonder I feel this way. It doesn't matter when you got there, just as long as you get there. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not, and they'll continue on and never really seek something better for themselves for whatever reason. So the fact that you're even watching the video that I'm making right now and asking the questions means that you've made a lot of progress. So give yourself some credit for that. It's never really too late. But I understand what you mean, that it seems like it's something that will go on for a long period of time. And why is that? Well, like I said, part of it is that we didn't want to see it. Even when it was right in front of us, we didn't want to. Someone might have even told us, and we were like, nah, and didn't listen. So, and then of course society doesn't want to see it either, for sure. Definitely, especially not as of late. So it seems that we as a culture have fully embraced narcissism as being a quality that we truly will back and get behind and defend. I think that's pretty clear. So, the reason it's not dealt with is because nobody wants to. And then the third question is, after the breakup or divorce, and then they start dating, the confusion around that. Glad they moved on and hopefully will leave you alone, but reality is that there's some sadness here. And also that those feelings can be really confusing surrounding this, especially because you don't want them, and they are toxic. But now they're dating somebody, and this gets really hairy and complicated. So I wrote down some notes about this. So let's go back up to question 1, which is why is doubt and rumination part of my life now? Like, why am I doing this all the time? So then the question is, how come I feel sad even though I don't want them anymore when I see them dating someone else? Well, part of that will be the rumination that you're doing, because you're going to be picturing a lot of stuff going on. And you'll start thinking that maybe that you were the problem, and that their next relationship might be happy because it was you plus them that made it bad, or your inability to put up with abuse, I guess, because a lot of us think that we're supposed to be able to power through some of these things for some reason, as if that's something that would be virtuous, when I'm saying no, we should never get used to abuse. That's not a good idea. So of course you're not going to power through when you're being abused. But, so we'll think that the next relationship is going to be happy, that he's going to be different with that particular, she's going to be different with that person, that their new partner, that the two of them together will actually work out. And that the reason that you guys didn't work out was because you didn't try hard enough, or, so here we're ruminating, right? Question 1, doing all that stuff. And then there's the questions of, does she know that he's abusive? Has he shown his abusive side yet? When will he? If he does, is he going to? And, should I tell them? Should I tell the partner? Should I message that partner on Facebook and say, hey, by the way, this person abused me? Well, chances are they're going to have already clued them in about you, so that if you reach out, then it's just evidence that you're crazy. They would have already warned the person, by the way, I have this crazy ex, and they have a history of reaching out and trying to damage my relationships because, she's so jealous, she doesn't want me to move on. So if this person, reaches out to you, just so you know, you don't have to listen to anything they say, they're crazy. So then here you go, hey, just want to let you know that I think this person, they were abusive towards me, and just want to let you know. And they're like, oh goodness, that's better. You're thinking you're helping, but you're really just feeding their victim narrative when you do something like that. So the next person that they are with, that's none of your business. I know, that sucks, right? But remember how you were? You weren't going to hear that from somebody, right? You were going to see the best in that person. You were going to defend them, to the end. You might even have joined up with them to help them abuse a previous ex, because you thought that ex was the abuser. So you might have thought you were you know what, I'll help you with this. I've heard many stories like that, where then later on that person who helped them team up against the previous ex are like, oh, wait, now he's doing that to me, or now she's doing that to me. Wow. So maybe that person wasn't who I thought they were. So you'll want to reach out and try to save the next person, but I promise that won't go well. It just feeds their narrative. They've already laid a trap there. And, part of us living in recovery from abuse is to resist our tendencies of being codependent. You're not responsible for that human's well-being. You're not responsible for their path in life. And if being in a relationship with a narcissist is for some reason part of their journey, that's truly not any of our business. I personally would say that of all the things, I don't know what I would change, honestly, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now and having the life that I have now, and I really love my life, and I've worked hard to get it. So, don't rob someone else of some beautiful experiences, despite the pain, the chaos, the agony of it. There are beautiful things that come of it too. So it's not up to you to prevent that next person from being targeted. Let's see. And when somebody starts to date someone else, that gives us that finality to it, and so that can cause us to start grieving again. So you might have thought you grieved it all out, but now they're dating and you're starting to grieve again, and that's normal. It's super normal and to be expected. And if you can just accept that this is part of the process and not beat yourself up for how you're feeling, then it makes it a little bit less painful. But the whole thing is painful to some degree. You're not going to be able to escape that. That's just an unfortunate fact of having been targeted by a narcissist, is there's an incredible amount of pain involved. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why they pick us too, is because we have a really high pain tolerance. Let's see. So you genuinely love this person. Let's go ahead and just embrace that and lean into that it's okay to simultaneously love someone and also need to get away from them. That's okay. I know it's messy, but that's how complicated relationships are, especially if it's a parental relationship. You might have a very abusive parent that you still love and care about, that you still seek approval from. Of course you do. That's just to be expected. Let's see. I think I got everything for that one. It's possible to love someone who abuses you, and it's super confusing. It's very confusing. Okay, so when they move on to another relationship, we will expect that that's going to give us some icky feelings, and that we're going to start to process things over again, right? We're going to recycle over and over again a few times. When we reach regular life development milestones is often when we start to process things again. So he or she gets remarried or starts dating. You do the same. Perhaps you have a child with your new partner, or there might be a death in the family, say of one of your parents, or let's say you're having a child for the first time, and so now you're truly able to put yourself in a parent's shoes, and you had an abusive parent. Oh my God, there's nothing more impactful than that, than to realize, whoa, there's no way I could ever treat my child that way. Never. Not in a million years. Now you have your own kid and you see what it took to be treated the way that you were treated is a whole nother perspective. Okay, let's see. What's the next question? Number 4. Why isn't more education being done about this? Because this has been horrific for me. People don't know what they don't know. Super true, right? It's like these personalities can fool anyone until you're on the receiving side of things, and that's true. It's what it takes is for you to have like a personal experience with it. Otherwise, we pretend like it's not there. And then she says, I'm amazed that at 40 years old, I learned exactly what it meant to be involved with a narcissist. I always thought it was someone who simply loved themselves. I had no idea. Yeah, I didn't either. And I was actually, in school to get my master's degree as a counselor, and, was like actually in training, receiving the education. And I'll tell you that, let's see, we have one term of abnormal psychology, and then within that course, I think we had 1 week of the cluster B types. And that's it. And yet, a lot of my clients who have trauma and who have been abused at the hands of personalities that we're not even discussing. Those tendencies and traits and what to look for and what is it and what the effects are. None of that was discussed ever. So, I learned about it on my own, and but I did not receive the education or training until after I became a counselor and then sought more education and training. So it's a taboo topic in mental health to discuss narcissism, narcissists, narcissistic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. It's sort of taboo, and in a way it's almost like we're supposed to just let that be something that is dealt with in the criminal justice area of study or practice, or say forensic psychology. But in terms of regular mental health therapists, counselors, we're not really given the training to understand abusive relationships. It's just something that I think that as professionals we must have had some sort of a personal experience with it in order to want to tackle the topic, because there's not a lot of people that will speak the truth about these matters because it's kind of ugly and scary. And so just like as an empathic target, we didn't want to face the truth about human beings. As a profession in general, we like to hope that the majority of us are empathic creatures, and we do want to see the best in others, and it's sort of hard for us to come to terms with the fact that there are people that truly do seek to harm, and that they get enjoyment out of it. That's kind of hard to admit to yourself as an empathic lover of humans. Let's see what my notes say here. So it's taboo. Oh, and then here's the other thing. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, and especially in positions of power. They're decision makers. They're leaders in the field. They will climb that ladder more easily than people who are empathic, because we care about who we step on and who we hurt and who we lie to, whereas they don't give a crap about who they step on, manipulate, and lie to, and steal from. They don't care, and in fact they think that we're sheep and that they're smart, that they don't play by the rules. So we have a kind of a disadvantage in a way, but anyway, so yeah, they're everywhere, and especially in positions of power. So let's say you work in an organization and you're trying to push this topic up the chain to see if we can get some approval on a program that addresses these issues. Well, the farther up the chain you go, sometimes the more likely you are then to encounter these types of traits. So just keep in mind that narcissistic people will often wind up in positions of power over others because that's what fuels them. So that's another reason. And then lastly, you don't believe it until it's happened to you. If somebody would have told me this before, I would have been like, yeah, that's a little bit, kind of a dark way to look at things, don't you think? I would have just been like, no, everybody can get better. And, and oh, here's another one. Well, the reason they act that way is because they were abused, so we should have empathy for them because they didn't choose this. Kind of problematic, right? Okay, so that was question number 4. And our last question is question number 5. Co-parenting is a nightmare. The legal system is a joke. How to not lose your shit while trying to co-parent with this person, especially when they're already using a court-mandated communication app where they're supposed to only be communicating via this monitored family app, and that person, the narcissistic person refuses to check it, and then if they ever do communicate in it, they're insulting you. Another way that they will, try to make these like false claims and strike out is they'll weaponize everything, I think is what she's trying to say. Here we have this system that's in place that's supposed to be here to protect me, actually. And this person is weaponizing it and actually using it to harm me. They're not abiding by it. Yeah. Okay. So I think I recently did 1 or 2 Facebook videos that had to do with parental alienation and co-parenting with a narcissistic person, and so I would recommend looking back through some of those videos because I think we did cover some of this previously, possibly. But remember that it's not co-parenting, it's counter-parenting. You're always going to be countering what they're doing in some way to find balance or to try to react in like a way that makes things better for the kids. So you're basically going to be trying to provide for the children in ways that they're not going to be provided for in the other household in terms of emotional intelligence, empathy, kindness, warmth, non-judgment, stability, there's not like some mean criticism happening where somebody's talking mean to them. So you work really hard to provide a life and the qualities that they need that that they're not getting in that other place. So that in itself is counter-parenting. You're not working as a team. And how we do this, and the question was, how do I not lose my shit? Well, we're going to lose our shit because it's maddening. It will fill you with rage. And that's what they want. They act in these crazy making ways that are so frustrating, and they do that on purpose because it's a way of like pulling the rug out from underneath of you when you don't know what's going to happen next, when they won't abide by plans, rules, arrangements, court orders. They're allergic to structure, and there's a reason for that. One is that they find that as being a failure, that if they have to comply, that they have failed. Because remember, that's what they wanted from you. They wanted you to comply, do things their way. They wanted to set all these expectations and for you to, meet all these expectations that they themselves didn't have to meet. So, one way to not lose your shit is to accept the fact that you're gonna, and that's okay, right? We just try to do better next time. But then also to practice that gray rock, Gray rock is super helpful, super important, and try if you can to integrate it into your thought life too. Don't make it just a mask you put on. Make that part of your thought life, which would be they're throwing a tantrum or behaving badly. In gray rock, we would say, I see that you're frustrated. I see that you're upset. And in your mind, if you can integrate that into your thought patterns with it, which would be, oh, they're throwing a tantrum. That's no more meaningful than that. If your child drops their ice cream cone and they're throwing a temper tantrum, there's no meaning there. There's none. It doesn't mean anything. We just have to endure it. We don't get on the ground with them and start kicking and screaming. We just stand up there and say, gosh, that really sucks that you dropped your ice cream cone. I hate it when that happens to me. And yeah, no, we're not going to be able to get another one, but I am sorry that happened. So you're gray rocking a toddler, and that means you can gray rock an adult. And you can also gray rock up here. That's an emotional shielding system that you use for yourself, is to, picture the other person as being an emotional toddler and things like this. We have some tools for navigation videos on Facebook already, and I'm getting ready to do a navigation webinar through lovefraud.com. Is going to be my next webinar, is how to navigate narcissistic personalities. And then we also want to practice acceptance, meaning that this is our situation. It's not fair, it's not right, it's miserable a lot of times, but the fact is that this is where we are with things, and to sort of like lean in and embrace that. When you try to fight life, it makes things just a lot more painful. It's better to try to go with the flow of life and lean into it. And then we're not battling against, we're not boxing windmills. We're going to go with the flow a little bit, even when it's crappy and it sucks. It's just, let's fully embrace this life in recovery and know that whatever you're experiencing, other people have experienced too, and it's just going to be part of your process. It's normal for your circumstance. And let's see. Oh, business pants. Don't forget about business pants. This is so important. That's part of the emotional shielding. Put on your customer service pants or whatever you use in the place of business or where you're employed. You're not going to be so emotionally involved with, say, a coworker who's behaving badly. You're going to approach that in more of a professional way. And you kind of take this business version of yourself into the situation, and you can do that in these situations too, and use business pants. Well, what does that mean? It means that when you encounter this person, that there's nothing else happening except for just the exchange of information. They no longer live with you, they're no longer married to you, they no longer have control over you, you're not in their life anymore, right? And so instead of allowing the control to continue by having emotional responses, we want to focus on having more cognitive prefrontal cortex responses, which is that we're looking at the person almost through like a scientific lens. You're observing behaviors without really assigning a whole lot of meaning to it. It's just, that's bad behavior. Instead of, what did they mean by this? Why did they do it at this particular time? And what does this mean about me? Instead, it's just, they're assholes, and so they behave like assholes. It's just simple, basic, right? There's no more meaningful than that. Why does a dog fetch? Same thing. This is how they act because this is who they are, and it's no more meaningful than that. And let's see, I talked about how that they will not abide by structure, plans, and arrangements because to them that's like a loss. It's a loss of control. It's a loss of their punching bag when you're no longer allowing them to abuse you. It's a loss, and they're perpetually victims no matter how you approach it anyway. So it's okay to put the business pants on. It's okay to look at them objectively, right? Because there's no amount of interaction, approach, tone, timing, or informed, educated approach. Nothing is going to change who this person is or how they treat you or the history that you have. There's nothing that you can really do. And so therefore it's time to let go of that in terms of how much influence your behavior has over their behavior. Let's just go ahead and amputate that and separate it, okay? You're no longer tethered to them anymore, which means that We want to try to remove that emotional response, but not in a way that we're not addressing the trauma. Okay, so a trauma response is hardwired. So when you encounter this person, you are going to have that little jolt. You're going to have the adrenaline. We can't help that part. That's not something you can control. So if that's what you're talking about, I'm saying you're going to need to lean into that, accept that that's how it feels when you encounter them, and then not assign a lot of meaning to it. It's just, stimulus, response. It's abuser, amygdala, and your amygdala is reacting accurately. So that means we're going to get shaky, sweaty, mouth dry, worried. We're going to have worried thoughts because they've traumatized us. And so yes, that's the regular response that you would have. That's normal, right? And we're not going to overcome that. That's how it's going to feel. But we can control, what we can affect is how much power we give that in our lives and how much meaning we assign to it. So instead of the next time you feel triggered by this person, instead of that inner voice saying, God, why can't you just, why does it still affect me like this? It's been 5 years and I'm still being so affected by it. What's wrong with me? No, it's that person abused you, and your brain remembers that, and so your body is going to have a response. But we can just keep it to that. It's just a bodily response. You ate a burrito, you're gassy, it'll pass, doesn't mean anything, right? So a trauma response to someone who abused you is meaningless. It's just the way that person has impacted your brain, the neurobiology of it, is that now you're linked. It's that the fight-flight thing, because they're dangerous. They hurt you. They controlled you. They objectified you, stole from you, went through your life like a tornado. So yeah, you're going to have some sort of visceral response to that person's presence or a chime on your phone. Don't beat yourself up for that. That's just how humans work. And it means that your amygdala is working just fine. But we don't need to assign a lot of meaning to it. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope this was helpful. Please continue to send your questions because this is the good stuff here. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.